Something prophetic is unfolding in Jerusalem, the return of Jesus. His feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, splitting it in two. Are we closer than ever to this moment? This is just the beginning. What's happening in Jerusalem is part of a much bigger prophecy. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will leave you speechless. Brought to you by Premonition. Jerusalem, the epicenter of biblical prophecy. Jerusalem is no ordinary city. It is often called the epicenter of biblical prophecy, not only in Jewish tradition, but also in Christian and Islamic faiths. Its significance transcends time, marking the fulfillment of prophecies that span millennia. But prophecy is never simple. What if this city, so sacred and contentious, holds a secret that no one is prepared to face? In 70 AD, the Romans destroyed the Second Temple, just as Jesus had prophesied. This was a moment of devastating loss for the Jewish people, but also a fulfillment of prophecy. The destruction of the temple signified a dramatic shift in the Jewish faith, a shift that would endure for centuries. Fast forward to 1948, nearly 2,000 years later, when Israel was re-established as a nation, once again bringing attention to the ancient city of Jerusalem. Then, in 1967, Israel took control of Jerusalem after the Six-Day War, marking another pivotal moment in biblical prophecy. These events were not mere historical milestones. They are seen by many as steps toward the fulfillment of ancient predictions. And now, a new chapter is beginning. Jerusalem's role in biblical prophecy is far from over. But could this new chapter bring more destruction than redemption? Could it signal the beginning of something terrifying and apocalyptic? Jerusalem is preparing for what's next, but for what exactly? Some say it is a step toward peace and the fulfillment of prophecy, while others fear it is the herald of a new conflict that will shake the world. The Third Temple, a prophecy waiting to be fulfilled. The Third Temple, a prophecy that has captivated the Jewish people for thousands of years, remains one of the most anticipated and debated events in religious prophecy. But here's something many might not realize. The moment this temple rises, it will set off an unstoppable chain of events. And once it begins, the world will never be the same again. For millennia, the Jewish people have prayed for the rebuilding of their sacred temple in Jerusalem. The first temple, built by King Solomon, was the center of Jewish worship, but it was destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BC. The second temple, later rebuilt, was destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. The longing for the restoration of the temple has persisted ever since, and now, for the first time in centuries, conditions seem ripe for its rebuilding. The establishment of modern-day Israel, along with growing interest in rebuilding the temple, signals that we are closer than ever to seeing this ancient prophecy fulfilled. But the building of the Third Temple is not just a symbolic event. It marks the fulfillment of prophecy in a way that will profoundly impact not just the Jewish people, but the entire world. The construction of the temple will be a sign that the Messianic age is drawing near. But what will that mean for humanity? Will the world be ready for the change that the Third Temple represents? The question remains, when the temple rises, will it come with unimaginable consequences? And what sacrifices will be necessary to make it a reality? The destruction of previous temples. Before you think this prophecy is all good news, you must consider the historical pattern of destruction that has accompanied the rise and fall of Jerusalem's temples. History shows us that great moments of prophecy often come with great destruction. The first temple, built by King Solomon in the 10th century BC, was destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BC. The second temple, rebuilt after the return from Babylonian exile, was destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD, an event that marked the beginning of a long period of Jewish diaspora and exile. But why has God allowed this temple to remain unbuilt for over 2,000 years? Could it be that this delay was intentional? Many believe that God was holding back something even more powerful until the appointed time, a time that is believed to be approaching. Since the destruction of the Second Temple, the Jewish people have waited, prayed, and hoped for the day the Third Temple would rise. But this longing for the restoration of their sacred place has a darker side. Could the Jewish prayers for the rebuilding of the temple be leading them to a prophecy they are not fully prepared for? Could the rise of the Third Temple signal the beginning of a tumultuous period of history, one that includes political, social, and even global upheaval? Many believe that the rebuilding of the temple will coincide with the arrival of the Messiah, but others fear it may lead to a period of great tribulation and conflict. As the events of the past and present unfold, it becomes clear that the fulfillment of this prophecy may not come without significant cost. The Third Temple is not just a religious desire. It is a powerful symbol that could change the course of history. As we stand on the brink of this prophecy's fulfillment, the world holds its breath, waiting to see whether the destruction and rebirth of Jerusalem will lead to peace or a far more cataclysmic outcome. The coming of the Antichrist and the Third Temple. The Bible gives a chilling warning about the coming of the Antichrist, who will exalt himself above all that is called God, even sitting in God's temple and proclaiming himself to be God. This prophecy, found in 2 Thessalonians 4, implies that the temple must exist before the Antichrist can take control. The prophecy speaks to the pivotal role the Third Temple will play in the final days of humanity. This raises an essential question. If the Antichrist's reign is tied to the existence of the Third Temple, how close are we to this moment? The Bible's warning points to Epicenter, where this temple will be built before the final events unfold, and preparations for its construction are already underway. But the question remains, who is funding these preparations, and why is the momentum accelerating now? In Jerusalem, the Temple Institute has been preparing for the temple's return for decades. This organization has meticulously recreated key elements necessary for temple worship. Among their efforts are the creation of the sacred golden menorah, which will stand in the Holy of Holies, the preparation of the priestly garments for the descendants of the Levites, and the restoration of the silver trumpets and incense altar. They have also trained priests in the ancient rituals and sacrifices that are an integral part of temple life. These efforts signal a deep belief among some that the rebuilding of the Third Temple is imminent. But these preparations are not without controversy. Many wonder what this means for the future of the region and the world. If the temple is rebuilt, will it fulfill biblical prophecy, or will it spark a conflict of biblical proportions? The rise of this temple could very well mark the beginning of the end, triggering a series of cataclysmic events. The red heifer and its significance. For the Third Temple to function, the Bible describes a crucial purification ritual involving the ashes of a perfect red heifer. According to Numbers 19, the ashes of a red heifer without blemish or defect are required to purify those who are ceremonially unclean, making it possible for the temple to be used in sacred service. This ancient commandment has posed a challenge for the Jewish people for over 2,000 years, as no perfect red heifer has been born since the destruction of the Second Temple. However, in 222, something extraordinary happened. 5 unblemished red heifers arrived in Israel, sent by a Christian farmer from Texas. The arrival of these heifers is considered by many to be a significant sign that the time for the rebuilding of the Third Temple is near. While the involvement of a Christian farmer in fulfilling this ancient Jewish prophecy may seem strange, it highlights the global attention and expectations surrounding the potential rebuilding of the temple. Why would a Christian participate in such a prophecy? Some believe it's part of a larger Christian interest in the fulfillment of biblical end-time prophecies, while others see it as a symbol of the intertwining of faiths and their collective longing for a time of redemption. regardless of the motivation behind the donation. The presence of these red heifers raises questions about what is happening behind the scenes in Jerusalem and whether the rituals necessary for temple worship are falling into place. The controversial location of the Third Temple. The location for the Third Temple is a point of intense controversy. According to Jewish tradition, the temple is to be rebuilt on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, the holiest site in Judaism. However, the Temple Mount is currently occupied by the Dome of the Rock, one of Islam's most revered structures. This makes the rebuilding of the temple not only a religious issue, but also a highly volatile political one. If construction of the Third Temple were to begin, it would almost certainly provoke violent resistance, not just from Muslims, but from people around the world. The potential for conflict in the region is enormous, with the Temple Mount being a focal point for both Jewish and Muslim worship. The symbolic significance of the Dome of the Rock, which is said to house the spot where the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven, would make any attempt to build the temple there a deeply contentious and divisive issue. Could this be the very battle that sparks Armageddon? The rebuilding of the temple in this contested location is seen by many as the final trigger for a global conflict of apocalyptic proportions. The stakes could not be higher, and the eyes of the world are on Jerusalem as tensions rise over what the future holds. Whether the construction of the Third Temple leads to peace or conflict is still uncertain, but its potential to ignite the final conflict of prophecy is a concern that cannot be ignored. The return of Jesus, the Mount of Olives. The Bible is clear about the return of Jesus. He will return to the Mount of Olives. This is not just any location, it is one of the most significant and sacred places in Christian tradition. It is where Jesus wept over Jerusalem, foretelling its destruction. It is where he delivered his powerful prophecy about the end times. It is where he prayed in anguish before his crucifixion, and it is where he ascended into heaven, promising that he would return in the same manner. In Zechariah 14:4, the Bible foretells that when Jesus returns, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, and the mountain will split in two. The significance of this moment cannot be overstated. The Mount of Olives will be the very site where the final chapter of history unfolds. But there's a chilling reality to consider. The Mount of Olives sits directly on the Syrian-African Rift, one of the world's most active seismic fault lines. This means that the mountain is vulnerable to a catastrophic earthquake at any time, an event that could cause it to split, just as Zechariah prophesied. Scientists have confirmed that a major earthquake could occur in this region, and it could happen at any moment. Could this be prophecy coming true? The intersection of ancient prophecy and modern scientific understanding suggests that we might be witnessing the final fulfillment of an age-old prediction. The arrival of the King of Kings. This is not just a symbolic story. It's a real and powerful truth. The King of Kings is coming, and his return will be unlike anything the world has ever witnessed. The Bible is clear. When Jesus returns, no force, no wall, no army, and no government will stand in his way. His reign will be absolute. The book of Revelation 19:11-16 describes his return. He will ride on a white horse, symbolizing purity, authority, and victory. He will come to bring justice and righteousness, not as a humble servant, but as the powerful king he is. His return will be visible to all. Every eye will see him. Revelation chapter 7. And his glory will be undeniable. This moment will mark the end of human history as we know it, and the beginning of a new reign, where peace and righteousness will be established forever. For Christians, this is the moment of ultimate hope, the fulfillment of God's promises to his people. Signs of the end times. The Bible contains over 735 prophecies about the future, and a staggering 81% of these prophecies have already been fulfilled. The remaining 19% primarily concern the return of Jesus and the events that will unfold in the final days. These prophecies serve as a roadmap, guiding believers through the signs that will signal the end of the age. Some of the most notable signs include wars, famines, earthquakes, and the persecution of Christians. These events are not isolated, but rather they occur in increasing frequency and intensity, as Jesus predicted in Matthew 24. The Bible speaks of wars and rumors of wars, and we have seen countless conflicts across the world. Famines have ravaged regions, and earthquakes have become more frequent and devastating. But perhaps the most concerning sign is the persecution of Christians, which has intensified globally as believers in many countries face oppression and violence for their faith. These signs, when taken together, suggest that we are living in the last days. While many of these events have occurred throughout history, the Bible suggests that they will increase as the return of Christ approaches. The current global situation, marked by conflict, natural disasters, and religious persecution, seems to be aligning with these prophetic indicators. The last days and the role of the church. Jesus gave his followers clear instructions on how to navigate the end times. In Matthew 24, he listed several signs of his return, including famines, earthquakes, the rise of false prophets, and the persecution of Christians. He also warned that many would be deceived and that some would fall away from the faith. But in the midst of this turmoil, Jesus assured his followers that those who endure to the end will be saved. The church's role in these last days is crucial. Believers are called to remain vigilant, faithful, and strong in their faith. They are not to be consumed by fear or anxiety, but to live with the hope of Jesus' return. The church must be a beacon of hope, spreading the gospel and encouraging others to prepare for the coming of the King. This time of testing will reveal the true heart of faith, and while many will falter, those who stand firm in their belief in Christ will be rewarded. Jesus' return is not just a future event to be hoped for, it is a reality to be prepared for. The church's mission in the final days is to remain steadfast in faith, continue the work of evangelism, and persevere through trials, knowing that the King of Kings is coming soon. When Jesus returns, there will be a final judgment. He will separate the faithful from the unfaithful, rewarding those who have remained true to him and punishing those who have ignored his message. This is the moment when the world will face its reckoning. Are we ready for the return of Jesus? The Bible warns that the end times are approaching, but we don't know the exact time. We are in the beginning of the last days, and the signs are all around us. The question is, are we ready for the return of Jesus? The clock is ticking, and the world is not prepared.